and localized pain sensation, whereas slow pain is followed by the slow pain, whereas fast pain is followed by the slow pain, which is experienced as a dull, diffused, and unpleasant pain. Fast pain sensation is carried by A delta type efferent fibers which synapse with the neurons of marginal nucleus in the posterior gray horn. Slow pain sensation is carried by C type efferent fibers which synapse with neurons of substantia gelatinosa of Ronaldo in the posterior gray horn. Fast pain is carried by neospinothalamic tract. Slow pain is carried by paleo-spinothalamic tract. Okay, pathways of pain sensation. There are 4 pathways. Pathway from skin and deeper structure, pathway from face, pathway from viscera, pathway from pelvic region. Now talking about from skin and deeper structure, the receptors. Receptors of pain sensation are the free nerve ending which are distributed throughout the body. So there are 3 order neurons, first order, second order, third order. First order neurons are the cells in posterior nerve root ganglia which receive the impulses of pain sensation from pain receptor through their dendrites. These impulses are transmitted to spinal cord through the axons of these neurons. Now fast pain fibers and slow pain fibers. We have already read fast pain sensation is carried by A delta efferent fiber which synapse with the neurons of marginal nucleus in the posterior gray horn. Now in posterior gray horn we have lamellas, 1, 2, 3 like that, so on. So first lamella is called lamina marginalis. Second and third lamella is called substantia gelatinosa. So fast pain sensation is carried by A delta efferent fibers which synapse with neuron of marginal nucleus, that is first lamina in the posterior gray horn. Now talking about slow pain fibers. Slow pain fibers is carried by C type efferent fibers which synapse with neurons of substantia gelatinosa of Ronaldo in the posterior gray horn. Substantia gelatinosa is the second and third laminae in the posterior, in the dorsal horn of the gray matter of the spinal cord. Now, talking about second order neurons, neurons of marginal nucleus and substantia gelatinosa of Ronaldo from the second order neurons. Fibers of these neurons ascend in the form of the lateral spinothalamic tract. So pain is basically carried by lateral spinothalamic tract. Now talking about fast pain fibers, we have already seen. Fibers of fast pain arise from neurons of marginal nucleus. Immediately after taking origin, the fiber crossed the midline via anterior gray commissure, reach the lateral white column of the opposite side and ascend. These fibers form the neospinothalamic fibers in lateral spinothalamic tract. Slow pain fibers of slow pain which arise from neurons of substantia gelatinosa, cross the midline and run along the fibers of fast pain as paleo-spinothalamic fiber and lateral spinothalamic tract. So basically pain is carried by lateral spinothalamic tract. Now moving on. Third order neurons. The third order neurons of pain pathway are the neurons in thalamic neurons, reticular formation, tectum, gray matter around educative cilius. Axons from these neurons reach the sensory area of cerebral cortex. Some fibers from reticular formation reach the hypothalamus. Now, centers of pain sensation. Center for pain sensation is a post-central gyrus of parietal cortex. Fibers reaching hypothalamus are concerned with arousal mechanism due to pain stimulus. From face, pain sensation from face is carried by trigeminal nerve. From viscera, pain sensation from thoracic and abdominal viscera is transmitted by sympathetic nerves. Pain from esophagus, trachea and pharynx is carried by vagus and glossopharyngeal nerves. From pelvic region, pain sensation from pelvic structure of pelvic region is conveyed by sacral parasympathetic nerves. Now, varieties of pain. There are 2 varieties: physiological pain, pathological pain. Physiological pain, it starts from the receptor for pain. Physiological pain It starts from the receptor for pain and enters the spinal cord and is carried upward. There are three types: allodynia pain, nociceptive pain, and hyperalgesia pain. Pathological pain, it does not start from the receptor, but if there is an injury and that is giving rise to pain, then it's pathological or neuropathic pain. Example: causalgia pain, phantom pain. Now, physiological pain, there are three types, right? Aldonia pain, non-noxious stimulus, that is non-painful stimulus giving rise to pain sensation. Non-painful stimulus giving rise to uh, pain stimulus, that is even a touch or breeze of air along the face would trigger severe pain. Basically, it has been thought to be due to Schwann cell degeneration of myelin or degeneration of receptors. Nociceptive pain is noxious stimulus, painful stimulus leading to corresponding degree of pain. Hyperalgesia pain is also noxious stimulus but giving rise to exaggerated pain. Some points to remember: previously non-responding receptors, if they start responding, that is said to be the cause of aldonia pain and hyperalgesia pain. Hyperalgesia pain mostly is the inflammatory pains. The inflammatory mediators, they sensitize the nerves and therefore cause excessive pain. Now, neuropathic or pathological pain, the one which is due to injury of the nerve. Example: causalgia pain, burning type of pain caused by crushing injuries of the nerve. Phantom pain, it is triggered by the injury of the nerve or compression to the nerve. The post neurologic is kept under this category. Analgesia pain, analgesia system, sorry. Analgesia system means the pain control system. Body has its own analgesia system in brain which provide a short-term relief from pain. Okay, so basically it is inbuilt pain modulator system in body. So there are three types: gate control theory, descending analgesia system, endogenous opioids and endogenous cannabinoids. So we'll talk about gate control theory of pain. So this is just an overview, basically summary. So as we know, acupressure, right? Acupressure theory. So it is based on gate control theory of pain. The gate for pain transmission is said to be the substantia gelatinosa, that is the second, third lamellae in the dorsal root of ganglion. So so apply to a pressure point, which is what is done in acupressure. The pressure signal will enter the spinal cord, and these collateral will cause presynaptic and postsynaptic inhibition of the pain signal of the pain carrying fibers. So the pain signal will not be going beyond this point, and therefore the gate for pain transmission is temporarily blocked or closed. Now talking about descending analgesia system, there are three components: periaqueductal gray, nucleus raphe magnus, pain inhibitory complex. We can imagine it like three boxes connecting with the neurotransmitter. So first is periaqueductal gray, that is around the aqueduct of Sylvius. It projects on nucleus raphe magnus, that is the second box. It has enkephallergic neurons, neurotransmitter, which ends on the nucleus raphe magnus neuron, that is the first box, and in the second box. First box is a periadequate gray, second box is the nucleus raphe magnus, and the neurotransmitter is enkephalin. Serotogenic neurons, which will come down to the spinal cord and end on these interneurons in the spinal cord, which form the pain inhibitory complex. These interneurons in the pain inhibitory complex, they have the neurotransmitter enkephalin in the spinal cord, So enkephalin is going to have inhibitory effect on the pain carrying fiber. That's the descending analgesic system. I'm sorry. So basically there are three component, periaqueductal gray, nucleus raphe magnus, pain inhibitory complex in the dorsal horn. They have neurotransmitter, enkephalin, serotonin, and then again enkephalin. And this is what does happen in the descending pathway and is going to cause signals to come here, and therefore the pain fibers, there will be presynaptic and postsynaptic inhibition of the pain, these pain afferent and the first order and the second order neurons. So enkephalin is going to have an inhibitory effect on the pain carrying fibers. That's the descending analgesia system. Okay, now moving on, endogenous opioids and cannabinoids. So endogenous opioids are endorphins, enkephalins, dynorphins. Endogenous cannabinoids are 2-erectidol, glycerol and anandamide. Endogenous cannabinoids के बारे में बात करते हैं. These endogenous cannabinoids released in various parts of the brain. They act via CB receptors of cannabinoids. CB1 and CB2 receptors are there. So CB1 receptor has been associated with the euphoria. CB2 receptors is thought to be associated with control of pain. So basically, currently the drugs are being developed that act via CB2 receptors, that is, which is associated with the control of pain, and thus produce analgesia. Okay. Uh, Now, endogenous opioids. These opioids are released in various parts of CNS. As we saw, enkephalin in the preaqueductal gray and spinal cord. Uh, yeah, right. Endorphins synthesized by various cells and various area in the brain. For example, POMC, that is opio melanocortin. POCM is a large polypeptide precursor. Intermediate lobe of the pituitary has basophils. So these basophil cells will synthesize POMC. It will first act on POMC to form ACTH and beta LPH. ACTH, that is corticotrophin, and LPH is beta LPH is lipotropic hormone. And further cleavage on either end will form MSH and CLIP. CLIP is corticotrophin like intermediate low peptide. Okay. Now, uh, preferential binding of endogenous opioids. So the receptors for endogenous opioids are mu, delta, kappa. So all three neurotransmitter binds to all these receptors, but they have a preferential binding. So for mu, the best binding occurs by endorphins. For delta, it is enkephalin, and by kappa, it's dynorphins. And the functions for mu are supraspinal and spinal analgesic, sedation, we can say meiosis, euphoria, constipation, respiratory depression, increased GH, and prolactin secretion. For delta, we can say analgesia only and the written things. And for kappa, we can say analgesia, obviously. Meiosis also occurs by kappa. Sedation, dysphoria, diuresis, and the written things. The strongest action of endorphins are meiosis and constipation. So this is a point to be noted. The strongest action of endorphins are meiosis and constipation. So we will end this by a question. Which of the following is the mu receptor action of opioids? First, meiosis. Second, sedation. Third, dysphoria. Fourth, diuresis. Now, by mu receptor, we can understand the most preferential binding for mu receptor is endorphins, right? So endorphins, so basically it's asking the action of endorphins. So we already read that the strongest action for endorphins are meiosis and constipation, so the answer will be meiosis. So thank you guys, thank you everyone. I'll end this.
So everyone has hello. So you are getting my voice now, everyone? If you have any doubts in this PPT, you can ask. I think some of the portion for pain, um, this pain explanation of pain, sensation of pain is should be there, but it's okay. At least she had explained nicely the theories which can be asked you in your exam. So if you have any doubt, you can ask, or we will move for next presentation. And all other students, like what I can see, when you join again, first mute yourself, otherwise it will make a lot of noise. So everyone, if you were left by any means of you, or you are joining again, then try to mute first yourself. Multiple times I am saying Astik, this Ripu, Ayushi, you are joining again and you are making too much noise. So first you mute while joining, then if it is not there, you can again mute yourself, but first try to mute, otherwise it will make no lot of noise, ambient noise. So if there are no questions, the receptors like endorphins and enkephalins, what she has explained, you will learn this opioid receptors in well detailed in second MBBS, like in pharmacology. So where you will have lot of that opioids, where you will learn what the drug addiction is. There you might be heard about this heroin, charas, ganja. So they are all acting on opioid receptors. So there are 3-4 types of opioid receptors. Same way inside our body, enkephalins and this endorphins, which are helping in relieving of pain, they also act on mu kappa receptors of the this endorphin. So in detail you will learn in second MBBS in pharmacology, but here at least you should know their name and the gating theory of analgesia and different role of neurotransmitters. Okay, so what is the example and reason for hyperalgesia pain? So Ashita wants to ask, what is the reason for hyperalgesia? So if you want to explain, are you there? Where is she? Isha, you want to explain
Uh, it is
it is
caused by
caused by
no, a noxious
a
stimulus
noxious
that is
stimulus that is
painful stimulus, giving rise to exaggerated pain. So this is the reason. Actually, what happens is hyperalgesia, mostly the inflammatory pains are the inflammatory pains. Inflammation and inflammatory mediators, they help sensitizing the nerves, and therefore it causes excessive pain sensation. So this is the reason for hyperalgesia pain. Yeah.
is there any role of any another neurotransmitter and any system in hyperalgesia?
So I've not
So
gone
I have not
deeply
gone
because it was
deeply
not
because it was not
required.
required.
It was just an
It was just an
overview
overview
because it's a big
because it's a
topic.
big topic. Okay.
So
So
basically
basically,
definition and how what is the cause of hyperalgesia? It's the inflammatory pains and it causes excessive pain sensation, which gives rise to exaggerated pain. That's it.
so also there is a role of prostaglandins whenever there is hyperalgesia and opioid receptors. Okay, so you will learn that again in pharmacology, but there is a role of prostaglandins. Okay, prostaglandins and opioids. When again extend the area beyond the injury has occurred. Okay. Okay, so who want to be next?
Good afternoon,
Who
sir.
will be next? Who is this? Ajab,
Sir
Priyanshu
Priyanshu.
Sharma.
Sir Priyanshu.
Okay, you can start. accept as a presenter, and you can start now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So may I start? May I start?
Start screen sharing.
Sir, is it visible? Is it visible?
Yeah, it is visible. Okay, you are doing on action potential. Okay.
Action potential. Action potential. Yes.
Okay, so before getting started, so everyone, it is very easy topic. So I am not given any easy topic to anyone, but this is very easy topic, but it is very important. Okay, action potential is very important. Though it is very easy, but you will find that 50% of students when in university they do not able to write or unable to write the even action potential in university exam. So you can you can revise this topic with this presentation, and you have to mug up this, and it is very easy, very helpful, and has a highest chances of getting this one in your university exam. Okay, so you can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be presenting my presentation on the topic of action potential. Objectives: to study the concept of action potential and describe the stages of action potential, ionic basis of action potential, properties of action potential, and types of action potential. We can define action potential as a rapid, stereotyped, self-propagated electrochemical change across the cell membrane when adequately stimulated. It is electrical property of a tissue. This is a typical neuron diagram. In our body, there are two types of impulse transmission: electrotonic conduction and action potential. The electrotonic potential or graded potential is a non-propagated local potential resulting from a local change in ionic conductance. It when spreads along a stretch of membrane, it becomes exponentially smaller or decrement, usually to a distance of about 10 millimeters. It usually starts from the dendrites and extends up to the axon hillock. Action potential is a self-propagated electrochemical change across the cell membrane when it reaches its threshold. The first action potential is generated at the axon hillock, as the axon hillock contains the maximum number of sodium channels, which accompanies a low threshold value. Action potential can usually be seen at the nodes of Ranvier. This is a diagram of cathode ray oscilloscope, which is an instrument used in a laboratory to display and measure the graphical representation of action potential. This figure shows the basic components of cathode ray oscilloscope, the electron gun, and a fluorescent screen against which the electrons are fired. It is also provided with two sets of electrically charged plates, horizontal plates and vertical plates, which in turn are connected to a nerve. When the nerve is stimulated, the horizontal and vertical plates start rotating around the electron beam, which in turn forms a graph. Seen on the fluorescent screen, known as the action potential graph. This is the graph obtained, known as the action potential graph. Phases of action potential: stimulus artifact, latent period, depolarization, repolarization, and hyperpolarization. Stimulus artifact: it is due to current leakage from stimulating electrodes to the recording electrode. It marks the point of stimulus. Latent period is the time taken by the impulse to travel from axon to the electrode. It ends with the start of action potential. Depolarization is the reduction in membrane potential from negative value towards zero. It forms the ascending limb of action potential. Threshold or firing level: threshold is the minimum value to which the membrane potential must be depolarized to initiate an action potential. It is usually 30 to 40 millivolts above the resting membrane potential, that is minus 55 millivolts. Repolarization is a stage of an action potential in which the cell expresses a decrease of voltage due to efflux of potassium ions along its electrochemical gradient. The initial 70% of the repolarization is rapid, but the latter on is a slow drop in potential called as after depolarization. Hyperpolarization occurs as the potential drops further after reaching the previous resting membrane potential and becomes more negative. After some time, the potential comes back to its previous resting value. As you can see in this graph, after reaching the resting membrane potential, the potential further drops but is recovered back to the resting membrane potential after some time. This dip is known as hyperpolarization. Duration of action potential. The size and duration of action potential varies from tissue to tissue. Action potential in a mammalian axon is not more than a few milliseconds, but in a cardiac muscle is approximately 200 to 300 milliseconds. Now I will tell you about the ionic basis of action potential, which is regulated by the sodium and potassium channels. Uh, as you can see in this diagram, the sodium ion has two gates, the activation gate and the inactivation gate. Thus, it can exist in three configurations. The activation gate is affected by the external stimulus, whereas inactivation gate is affected according to the inside. The potassium ion channel has only one gate and thus can only exist in two configurations. Either it is closed or it is open. When stimulus is applied, the gated sodium ion channel on the neuron's membrane suddenly open and allows sodium ions present outside the membrane to rush into the cell. This is called sodium influx. Depol Depolarization. When the stimulus is applied, on the neuron's membrane, uh, the sodium channel the gated sodium ion channels open, and sodium influx is seen. As you can see in this diagram, when stimulus is applied, the activation gate opens and allows the sodium ions to rush into the cell. Depolarization. During depolarization, the polarity of the inner membrane gets reversed from negative to positive due to entry of sodium ions. So, as you can see in this diagram, the sodium channels at plus 35 millivolt becomes inactivated due to the closure of inactivation gate, whereas the potassium ion channel starts opening, causing the potassium efflux. Repolarization. Repolarization is due to two factors. The inactivation gate of sodium channel closes as plus 35 millivolts, and at the same time, the potassium channel starts opening. As you can see in this diagram, the potassium channels are open from plus 35 millivolts. Hyperpolarization. Hyperpolarization is a change in a cell's membrane potential that makes it more negative. It is the opposite of depolarization. After some time, the potassium channel closes and the potential comes back to its original resting value. Uh, Significance of action potential: it controls the cell function. Signals are transmitted from nerve to nerve or nerve to muscle in form of action potential. It is the language of excitation in the excitable cells. So it is coupled with response known as excitation contraction coupling. ECG, EMG, ERG, EEG, etc. are basically action potential. Local anesthetics block the opening of sodium channels, so the generation of action potential is prevented. Characteristics of action potential: it requires a threshold stimulus. A threshold stimulus, which is the minimum stimulus required to initiate an action potential. It obeys all or none law, which means if stimulus exceeds the threshold potential, the nerve will give a complete response, otherwise there is no response. It is self-propagating, means that it automatically triggers the neighboring membrane as neighboring membrane are as into producing an action potential. It is non-decremental as it propagates along neuronal projections, so it can travel longer distances, that is more than 10 millimeters, like in the case of electrotonic conduction. Refractory period. Refractory period is that phase between stimulus in which another stimulus cannot be generated. Cannot generate. Hello.
You
Hello.
again
Hello.
start screen sharing. Okay, your screen sharing is not visible. Your
So I
PPT is
have
not
started
visible.
now.
Okay, okay. It is now there. Okay.
Okay. So may I continue from refractory period? Okay.
Continue, continue.
The refractory period is that phase between stimulus in which another stimulus cannot generate an action potential. It can be of two types: absolute and relative. Absolute refractory period is the period during which any stimulus, strong or weak, cannot generate action potential, whereas relative refractory period is the period during which a strong stimulus can generate action potential. Classification of action potential depending on waveform, spike potential and plateau potential. Spike potential is usually seen in nerves, skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, where plateau potential is seen in cardiac muscles due to the presence of calcium channels, calcium ion channels, and some smooth muscles. As you can see in this diagram, the first diagram shows the spike potential, whereas the second diagram shows the plateau in cardiac muscles, usually because the calcium ion channels are the calcium ion is larger in size, so it takes longer time to pass. So there is a phase of plateau. It is seen as it's seen in the graph. Thank you, sir.
Uh, so have you completed? Okay. So anyone has any question? I think there will be a lot of questions. So it is better it will be from your side. Any important and other questions, or you can ask that in your class also, in WhatsApp group also. But anyone? You have not compared action potential of smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and skeletal muscle.
Sir, I showed it in the plateau graph and spike graph. I did
Okay, you have showed
classified it individually.
Okay, you have showed it on action potential graph, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so whenever if this question will be there in your university, you have to lastly, or when you draw the diagram of action potential after completion of your all phases, depolarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization, latent period, then at finally you compare action potentials of smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, and skeletal muscle. Okay, so we have to take the note that the differences will be there, and in I think properties you have to explain again very finely the refractory period. Okay, so that you have missed, and again I think you have missed some of the properties. Let see this, add to your presentation and then post it again. When you talk about I think you have talked about sodium channels, potassium channels.
Yes, sir.
Sodium
Yes.
potassium pump.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have talked about sodium potassium pump, yes or no?
No, sir. Not sodium
No,
potassium pump.
you have to talk, no, otherwise then resting membrane potential will not be restored. Okay, so
Okay.
in phase of depolarization, that will be sodium. Okay, and that is not just voltage gated sodium channels, there will be also activation of, when someone touches on your skin, there
Yes,
will
sir.
not be directly activation of voltage gated channel. No, before that there will be activation of which channels? Sodium channels. Which type of sodium channels? Anyone from group? If you are getting my question. Voltage gated channel will get activated when it will cross the, or when the potential will come to the threshold level. Before threshold level, so before threshold value, which type of sodium channels will get activated? Usually like in touch, if someone touches, see, touching is not the electrical phenomena, no. Are you
Yes, sir.
getting this?
Yes, sir.
It is,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and your sodium channel is only activated when there will be change in the voltage. But when you touch, there will not be change in any voltage. So that touch is called as touch, changing the entry of sodium ions. That channels are called as, anyone, if you are getting my voice, anyone, they are called as ligand gated channel. No, that is again, that is chemically driven sodium channels. Voltage gated channels are changed with the potential. This is another type. Pradyuman had said ligand gated channels. Okay, that will also be sometimes, if it is not the touch, it is when some hormone or chemical wants to have any effect on another cell. So this is second type. Third type, which is important, when someone touches or pressure or vibration is there, which type of sodium channels get activated? Again, you can try, anyone can try. What that channel? Very good. Sakshi has our mechanically gated sodium channels. So they are mechanically gated. Mechanically gated means if someone touches, there will be stimulation of this mechanically gated sodium channel that will put the action this changes this voltage changes up to the threshold level. Okay, and after that then voltage gated channels will get activated. Okay, so that again if you want you can explain. You have to explain sodium leaky channels, potassium leaky channels, and then thirdly the sodium potassium pump. Without sodium potassium pump, action potential will not get completed. So we have explained properties and everything, and lastly that comparison. Okay, so that
Yes,
will
sir. Yes,
carry
sir.
the this all marks. So I think it will be enough for today. Who wants to regulation of respiration, Farah? So tomorrow you can be ready by 11:30.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Achha, you
yes.
have unmuted yourself already. So you have
Good
prepared.
afternoon. Good afternoon.
You have
Yes,
prepared
yes.
this regulation of respiration, whole of respiration,
Yes.
chemical, and this
Chemical and neural both.
both. Okay, so try to explain. So it will be very long presentation. Even you can take break, like you can explain tomorrow any one chemical or neural, and after that another one. Okay, that's up to you because it is very big topic. So definitely if
Okay,
you
sir.
want to explain it will take 1 or 1.5 hour also.
Okay.
So you can divide by your choice anything chemical or neural, because only you can talk for 15 to 20 minutes, so as it is presentation, and
Yes.
others will not continuously able to hear that. So you take any chemical or neural tomorrow, but try to complete all the points, all the topics for and you have to raise questions also, like what will be the questions that can be asked in your exam. So whenever, because now we are not studying just like we are studying 1 year back. So
Yes.
now your study should be concentrated on university patterns. So whenever you are giving anyone, all for all, it is for all. So whenever you are trying to have any presentation, first you, after your objective, try to show the university question also. Okay, if you have, take one slide for the university questions. If you can have university questions over there, or you can you can made your own questions, but separate it that these are the university questions and this is made by me. So that will give you the idea that what type of questions can be asked in university. Okay,
Yes.
so I think
Yes.
it's okay. If anyone have any questions, you can ask in group. For this two presentation, both presentation were very nice from Isha and Priyanshu. So you can ask them question. At least today you people, Isha and Priyanshu, will be answering all the questions regarding pain and this what action potential. So this both will be ready today to answer each and every questions from the group. So complete your, at least for today, physiology topic, pain and action potential, and both have almost potential of 15 marks in your university. Okay, so 15 marks can be there from this two topic. If you got both the question, then you are very lucky, but at least action potential can be asked in short notes or long question. Okay, so today we have seen 15 marks out of your 200 marks. Okay, so everyone be there in group activity. Okay, sure.
Goodbye.